Hi. What's up? How are you guys? Hey Luz. Hi Silly. Hi Lexi. Holy. Ha 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 ha. How are you, Lexi? Thank you, Luz. I'm trying to do the quest and not cry for the tower thing, but I don't understand it. Okay, tonight I felt like doing something different. You know, I want to do some different stuff. So, I want to yap a little bit. There's a lot of stuff I want to yap about. Um, and I want to cover a few things, and I want to react to a video as well. So we're not gonna be, only playing the game tonight. I want to do a few other things. So, I think we can start with this. Hold on. Where is it? Um, no. Okay, I think this will work. Okay. Cover these nuts. Wait, what? No, what I mean is that I want to talk about a few different things tonight. You know, I don't want to just play the game. I want to talk about a few things. Because there are things that are going on that I feel people are not really paying attention to. They're actually quite interesting. For instance, hold on, let me pull it up. Like what exactly? I'll show you. Give me a second. Is this it? Is this it? Properties? No, it's not. This must be it. No. I guess we can do this one. Yeah, I think this will work. Okay. Filters. Crop. This is gonna show up a photo of Drago. No, that's not what I'm intending to do. Okay, so let me just see if I can. I think I gotta chop this up a little bit more. Hold on. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah, this should be fine. And then, okay, here we go. There. Okay, so story time. Okay, the year was the year was 2020, right? What happened in 2020? We had something called COVID, right? And with COVID, we had a game coming out called Genshin Impact, right? It was a gacha game. Nobody, I mean, most people in the West did not know what gacha games were, right? So Genshin took the world by storm, right? And became very successful, right? I'm sorry, Ducky. Bear with me for a second. So Genshin took the world by storm, right? And then after Genshin, we had quite a few games that tried to enter the space, but like, majorly we had Tower of Fantasy. We had Wuthering Waves. And then Genshin, and then HoYoverse released the Ishtar and ZZZ and so on, right? There are others in between here, but I don't think they're relevant enough to talk about. But yeah, right? And then, what do we have nowadays? We have 2025. We have Ananta. We have NTE, which is Neverness to Everness, right? It's not showing properly. Oh, damn. Thank you. Give me a second. I'll fix it. No, I didn't know that. It should... Okay. I know what's going on. I know. I know it's for free, by the way. Okay. Anyway. So, the reason... Why am I telling you this, right? There's a... I do have a... I'm trying to get somewhere here, okay? So... When this happened, like when 2020 happened and Genshin came out, right? It brought to the mainstream a genre called gacha, which was mostly relegated to Asian countries and Gooners, right? It wasn't mainstream. Gacha games were not mainstream, but Genshin changed that, and gacha games became mainstream, right? And then we had several other games enter the space, right? So what happened after that? Well, Ananta is a game that's basically GTA 6 with Spider-Man 2 mechanics. That's what Ananta is. NTE is basically Genshin with cars, but worse, okay? So I was really excited about NTE, but it turned out to be just Genshin with cars. Ananta is the real revolution, okay? But what I'm trying to say here is this. Gacha games became popular because people saw the success of Genshin and thought they could do the same thing and be as successful, even though they were late to the market, right? And they couldn't. Like Tower of Fantasy died basically. It didn't go end of service, but it's like very tiny nowadays. It even lost the publisher. Wuthering Waves became exclusively for Gooners, mostly because it only releases female characters and it has a smaller percentage of the player base than Genshin does. HSR has a very faithful play base, but mostly mobile. ZZZ became a Gunner game, just like Tower of Fantasy. Okay, that's more what happened here. And the gacha genre, which people thought was something that would stay forever, and that was like the new thing, is kind of dying. It's kind of dying. Last year, a game called Marvel Rivals came out. Also, from Asia. Also featuring lots of characters, but the difference was with Marvel Rivals, the characters were free. You didn't have to pay for them. You only had to pay for cosmetics, right? Which is something that is oddly familiar to us because that's the monetization of pretty much every free online game that we play. You normally play for cosmetics. Look at Fortnite. Look at Rocket League. Look at any other online game. They all monetize through cosmetics, and Marvel Rivals was no different. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying all of this is because Ananta will be the first AKA gacha game that doesn't charge for characters. So Ananta is the evolution of the genre pulling from Marvel Rivals and every other online game that doesn't charge for characters, it only charges for cosmetics. Which means this is dying. Gacha games are dying. Gacha games was never a real thing. Only Genshin was a real thing. Everybody else rode the wave alongside Genshin, but only Genshin has staying power. Everybody else called the genre as gacha, when in reality the only thing that actually has any staying power is Genshin. That being said, even HoYoverse is switching gears. All that to say that HoYoverse released a game today. I think it was today or the day before today, or it's about to release. A game that's targeted at younger audiences with creatures like Pokemon and stuff like that, right? Gamba will still be a thing, but for cosmetics, not for characters. So, HoYoverse is releasing a game that is not a gacha game, but it also is releasing in 6.1 a sandbox, kind of like Roblox, using Genshin characters, or characters like Genshin characters, and Genshin environments and everything else, giving players the Genshin tools to create their own thing, kind of like Fortnite does. So HoYoverse is not only diversifying by adding other games, but they're also diversifying by adding a sandbox to Genshin, which means user-generated content inside of Genshin that's coming in 6.1, and everybody gets to make their own character. And why are they doing this is because while everybody else was riding the wave of a supposed to be gacha genre, the genre itself was never mainstream. Only Genshin ever was. Okay? So, Gamba will still exist. Gacha games will still exist. But Genshin was the only real mainstream part of gacha. So, HoYoverse is diversifying with Sandbox instead of Genshin 6.1, even though the game will obviously keep existing, right? Because it is a standalone outside of the genre. And the future of the genre are games that do not charge for characters, such as Ananta. NTE is from the same company as Tower of Fantasy, and it's probably gonna die too, because it's using the same rules as this generation. Ananta realized that this is not gonna work, and is going for monetization through cosmetics. Okay. So the only reason I'm giving you guys all this knowledge and all this information is because we're finally starting to see this game will probably come out next year. In a month, we're gonna have Genshin Sandbox, which will be player-generated content. Obviously, we'll start small, but this could be Roblox 2.0. This could be Fortnite-generated content 2.0. It could be huge because it's basically sandbox anime, right? So, and this is something that not a lot of people are talking about. Sure, you see some isolated cases of people praising Ananta for being not charging for characters, but I don't think nobody made this connection of what HoYoverse is doing and why they released a new game, why they're putting Sandbox into Genshin right now. What is going on? Nobody actually made this connection, so I thought it was interesting to give you guys what I think is happening on the market, and keep an eye out for Ananta. It has amazing mechanics. It feels like GTA 6, but with Spider-Man 2 mechanics. It has Venom abilities, it has the Spider-Man swing, and you can customize your own character. So this game is going to be absolutely huge. Pay attention for it. It's going to be really good. This one, don't go for it. It's from the same creator as Tower of Fantasy. I used to play Tower of Fantasy, and I thought I was really hyped up for this title, but I don't think it's gonna go anywhere because they didn't land on lessons. The Wuthering Waves will continue to just get smaller and smaller because it's Gunner bait, and so is ZZZ. HSR has its own mobile fan base, so it's gonna remain. But like, I'm not counting on these two games doing anything interesting, right? So yeah, Ananta and Genshin Sandbox I think are the future alongside Marvel Rivals, and this is the reason why I wanted to talk about all this, because I think it's important to um, look at the industry with a critical eye since I stream in the space, right? And see what's going on and how my channel will evolve as well. So in the future, I probably will check out Genshin Sandbox and try to play user-generated content as much as I can, because I think there's huge potential there. I think it's going to be really fun, especially if they have been paying attention to all the mini games that Genshin releases on every event and do similar stuff. It has the potential to be really good and interesting. And also, Ananta is going to be a massive. I have no question about that, and it's going to be really, really good. Um, so yeah, that was a message. Um, yeah, I hope so, Lex. That's kind of the plan. Um, Now I want to talk a little bit about um the lore so far. I saw this video from Minsleaf about the lore of Genshin and especially the lore in 6.0, and I thought it consolidated everything that we learned from the game so far and where the lore of the game is headed. That I think it's gonna be really good to watch it on stream and talk about it, because I think there's a lot of like lore bits and pieces that are really good in her video, and she makes some really good analysis without going too deep into theory crafting. So, if anyone is curious about Genshin lore, I think it's a great video. I think it's the best video for this specific moment of the game story that I've seen. So I kind of want to watch it on stream as well. I'm gonna pull it up. Just give me a second. This video is pretty damn good. I was watching it last night as I was playing, and I thought, okay, I gotta watch this on stream. What's with the new hair? I thought you said you were done changing. Okay, so yeah, about the new model. This model is a work in progress. Okay, I thought the other one was too feminine, like way too feminine. So I went back to the drawing board and I switched to a new head. Um, and I really like this one. I think this one has the right amount of masculinity. I think it looks nice. I'm very happy with the way that it looks. But like, um, I'm still working on it, right? This is not feature complete. The hair doesn't move yet, which is something I always like to do, is having my hair move. So I didn't put that in yet. Blend shapes are kind of messy, so that's why I just used like the very minimum so far. I gotta work on the blend shapes still. And the hair should move. So I'd say it's about 70% complete. It's not fully complete yet. Complain about my YouTube? Sure. Go ahead. Complain now because I'm gonna start watching the video. And then I kind of want to focus on that. Speak now or forever hold your peace. I always wanted to say that. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. I got arrange the window so it's actually fits the screen in a nice way. P. P is a pretty good thing to say, I guess. It's the freaking tail. I mean, just look at it. Look at put a fairy tail, bend it sideways. Just call it a day. Need some fluffiness. Okay, so my old tail was exactly the same. I don't know what you're talking about. Look, let me see if I can pull it up. I'll pull it up for you. Why are you complaining? This tail is actually okay. So the old tail had only 12 bones. This tail has 16. It's more detailed. See, this is the old tail. It's the same except this one has less bones. OG hair color back. What is this? What you call the OG hair color? You want it to be kind of yellowish. You prefer the thicker tail. Is that what you're complaining about? That the tail is not thick enough? Is that your concern? You love what, Luz? The old tail or the new tail? I can make the new tail thicker. If your problem is the thickness, I can fix that. Is that we need this tail back? Okay, I promise you on the next version I'll make the new tail thicker just for you, Lex. Okay. I'll make the new tail thicker just for you. There you go. And I'll make the hair yellow for Silly. So you both get your wishes for the next version, okay? But I am keeping everything else because I prefer this model way more. It's more masculine. The other one is too feminine. I still gotta work on it, but yeah, I'll make the tail thicker and I'll make the hair yellow. There you go. You happy? Boobies? No. No boobies. I'm not a girl. I actually moved over to this model because I was unhappy that the other one was too feminine and this one is just more masculine. Just so you know, Lex, this model is infinitely more complex, and let's say instead of making my models, I bought them. This one would be 5 times the price of the other one. It's way more detailed and way better. Of course, there's things on this one that are not feature complete yet because I'm still modifying it. But yeah, this is way better. Okay. And maybe you're just complaining that it's a work in progress, but trust me, this one will improve over time way more than I can improve the other one because it has so many bells and whistles and customization options that it's just a matter of time. This one has like way more animation frames and it's like almost twice the size, so yeah. It's the opposite. This one is like the the oh my god, this is so cool model. Yeah, I think over time you're gonna end up appreciating this more. Trust me. I don't know why, but I thought the other one was too feminine. It does look too feminine. It looks too chibi and too feminine. I'm sorry. There was nothing I could do to this to make it less chibi and less feminine. I just had to move over to a better model. And that model is better in every way. Like it just is. It just is better. Maybe I could eventually switch the tail and the ears, but like the face, which is like the essence of the model, this one is so much better. And also, I did this one in secret, and I consulted a lot of people, and everybody thought this one was better. Everybody that I talked to thought this one was better than the old one. Every single person. It was blind tests, so it wasn't really. They couldn't. Nobody could hurt my feelings because I did blind tests. Like even the tongue on this thing is more detailed. Like everything on this one is better. I still gotta work on the blend shapes, so they're not perfect yet. But yeah, it's just so much better. And yeah, I can't make the tail fluffier. Don't worry, it's gonna be fluffy next time you see it. All right. Carry on. Let's do the video segment. Gotta cut this by a little bit more than that. 1,300 maybe? There we go. Perfect. Actually, I don't want to hide the name of the creator, so that's okay. Perfect. Okay, are we ready? Here we go. I'm gonna start the video now. Okay, here we go. I hope you guys can hear this.
Notcry was created to bridge the gap between the deep lore of Genshin and its main story. And now that the Luna 1 Archon quests are finally out, we're left with more questions than ever. And honestly, that's the best part. That's exactly what has me hooked on this story, so much so that I've spent way longer than usual picking apart every detail of these quests. So let's just...
So, first comment, Notcry was made to bridge the gap between all the knowledge that we got out of the game from 1.0 up to Netlane, right? Like there's bits and pieces of lore spread across all games, and the game was always made its lore in a way so that we always had more questions than answers, and a lot of the stuff was always relegated to learn about this on the end, learn about this on the end, and this is the first time that we're actually getting some huge lore drops, and there's a lot of stuff here. There's stuff on Notcry that was pending from knowledge ever since the game came out in 1.0. Stuff that was mentioned in books and is now finally we're actually seeing it play, like the moon stuff. The 3 moons were talked about ever since 1.0, but like we never actually got any concrete information about what happened to the false sky that was only discussed in an event that HoYo never brought back, and so on. I think it was called Unreconciled Stars. I wasn't around for that, but I saw the video. I saw a recap of the event that someone made on YouTube just because it was so good. It was such good lore. But yeah, let's keep it up. Sorry.
Dive right in. Notcry is an autonomous region south of Snezhnaya and is considered one of the harshest places in Teyvat. It has no Archon and no central government. Instead, the closest thing to a legal authority is the Voynich Guild, a powerful merchant group based in Nasha Town. But Notcry isn't like anywhere else we've seen before, because its people don't rely on traditional visions or elemental power as we've known it. The people of Notcry are able to use a special power known as Kuvaki that predates the Archons of Teyvat. Kuvaki.
This is really important because it was mentioned on just a few tidbits of the story that the gnosis from the archons was created from the pieces of the third descender. So like before the third descendant came, pause. We didn't have any archons, and we did not have elemental powers or visions or anything like that. Of course, the elements existed, but people did not use it, right? Visions did not exist. Visions became a thing after the third descender because his body became pieces that became the archon's authorities, the gnosis. So like, this is proof that before the third descender, there was actually other people on the planet using a different kind of elemental energy through Kuvaki and through phlogiston in Netlane.
Is a pure primordial form of elemental energy originating from the moons. There are two major conflicts in Nodcry at the time of the Act 1 and Act 2 Archon quests. First, the Fatui have their hands all over the region, trying to claim it as sovereign territory for the Saritsa. They've also pulled moon fragments down from the sky. One crashed on Hisi Island, the other on Paha Isle, on top of which they've set up something called the Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau. It might sound straightforward. They're here to research the ancient power, Kuvaki, that's inherent to Nodcry. But there's definitely more than meets the eye. They're also encroaching on Frostmoon Scion territory, harassing them over the location of their missing Harbinger Columbina and a sacred relic called the Moon Marrow, which can apparently see the true past.
So important about this, like another hugely important thing that we're only first starting to see here, is the true motivation of the Fatui. We know they want the Gnosis, and that they're apparently evil, but we don't know why they want the Gnosis. What's the Saritsa's final goal? And we don't know their end game or like how they act beyond like the little things that we get involved in their business. So this is the first time that we actually get a more deep into Fatui knowledge and like what they do and what they're doing, and so on. And like this game will have a theory. Sorry, this video will have a theory later on that explains possibly why the Tsaritsa is doing what she's doing, and it's quite the lore bomb. I don't know if it's gonna play out the way that a main slave thinks about it or not, but if it does, it's gonna be massive. And like, the Fatui here, you see that they're more of an anti-hero than a villain per se. Like whenever we get attacked by the very rear, like the fifth, one of the five sinners of Kharia, Marionette comes in our defense, right? I mean, she also fights alongside us, which was pretty cool. So they want you to play chess. Yeah, one of the videos did show them playing chess, but like they're playing chess with Celestia, right? They're trying to defeat Celestia. But we don't know how truly evil Celestia is, the extent of what they do, what they're evil about, and so on. Because like to us, the only thing that ever happened from Celestia was the unknown god that now we know it's the god of space, preventing us from leaving the planet. That's all we know. So like, we don't know why the Fatui are fighting them.
Basically, the Fatui are picking a fight on all fronts, and nobody's happy about it. Not even the local wildlife. I think we all agree with the ibis that pooped in their food. The narrative suggests the Fatui are entering the final stages of their plan for war against Celestia, and what they're doing here in Nodcry really feels like a critical piece of that puzzle. And
it does.
I'm telling you, it's scary. We should be scared. But I'm also excited, and you'll see why in a bit. Meanwhile, the second threat to Nodcry is even more ancient. The Wild Hunt. After the fall of Kharia, during the Cataclysm, Nodcry was hit first and hardest, and the Abyss left its deepest scars here. These powerful forces gather into something called the Wild Hunt, an abyssal calamity so overwhelming that Nodcry had to form an entire faction, the Lightkeepers, just to fight back. Nashatown even has a massive Kuvaki cannon built by Aino dedicated to holding the wild hunt at bay. And here's one of many lore bombs. This wild hunt is led by none other than Rarier, one of the 5 sinners of Conria. Throughout all of this chaos, Traveler has their own mission. They're searching for their spaceship.
So like the 5 Sinners of Conria is an enemy that came into play more recently. We started to get bits and pieces about them not too long ago. I think they are replacing the Fatui with the 5 Sinners as like the major plot enemy. And we're gonna see a switch from the Fatui to being the main antagonist to like anti-hero to help us around sometimes whenever our interests converge instead of actually real enemies. They're the enemies of Celestia, not us. But we don't know exactly why they hate Celestia yet, right? I think we're gonna find out really soon. I think maybe Notcry will end with us finding out why Fatui hates Celestia so much. And more lore about the 5 Sinners. We have a few bits and pieces about the 5 Sinners, right? We've seen the guy that was inside of the crystal on the Archon quest featuring our sibling. The guy that was inside of the crystal and gave intelligence to Caribear. That was like the first contact of ours with one of the sinners. And then we had like those Cosm quests in which they're briefly mentioned. But we don't have a lot of information on them. And HoYo has been lore dropping bits and pieces from the sinners ever since that quest in Mondstadt that we went recently when Durin was made. So like that was like the turning point for the 5 sinners. Because we learned that one of the 5 sinners that happens to be Gold, the mom from Venti, not from Venti, the mom from Albedo, also ate one of the 4 shades. She ate the god of life, right? So she's one of the sinners. Rarier is the second sinner. Vetafolner is the third one. I think he's on Skirk's story quest. And then we seen the other dude that was inside of the crystal. But that's about it. That's all we know, right? So there's a lot more that's gonna come out during our cry about the sinners, I'm pretty sure. Because like this guy, Rarier, also mentions a few names whenever we're facing him during the Archon quest. So I think more lore about them will come out. And since Alice will be involved in our cry, Alice will probably give us even more lore about them.
Spaceship that crash landed here in Nodcry. The logs inside might hold the truth about why they came to this world in the first place. But here's where everything unravels. If the spaceship really did land here, and if the past vision Columbina showed us is actually true, then we have to ask, what does that mean for the sibling? Did they ever exist in the first place? Or have we been chasing nothing more than an illusion this whole time? This one detail alone has flipped the entire lore.
Yeah, so like, we always thought, or at least we're fed the information that there are twins, right? And they fell on the planet from us. Actually, no, the spaceship is new, right? We thought they would travel the stars by themselves without needing a spaceship. Because they never mentioned a spaceship. We just saw 2 stars in the sky. We thought they were, the 2 travelers just flying across space. That's what the game implied. And then now we found out there was actually a spaceship. And that they traveled together in the spaceship. But at the very beginning of the game, they showed 2 stars crossing the sky. So if there was only 1 spaceship, why is there 2 stars, right? So, it seems like that may be like retconning, but it also may have a deeper meaning. That that scene is not actually a memory. It's just like something that was fed to Ether to make him think that he has a sibling. Because whenever he gets the moon marrow, he has a vision from Columbina that shows that Lumine never actually left the ship. The ship was sealed ever since Ether left it. So, and she never came out of the ship with him. Whenever the ship arrived, she walked to the ship without getting out of the ship. Like the ship arrived and then it was like covered in moss, and then she walks to the ship after a long time since the ship fell. So we're pretty sure she didn't come out of the ship. Only Ether did. So what gives? If you remember the Sumeru Archon quest with Nahida, Nahida said that the World Tree has knowledge of Ether, has knowledge of Lumina, but not of Ether. He's a descender, she's not. And the only way that she can have knowledge in Irminsul is if she is of Teyvat. So if she is of Teyvat, she's not his sibling, right? Because he's from outside of the planet. So then, what is that actually going on? Is she a clone? Did Karia make her? Was she made through alchemy like Albedo? Because like Gold was one of the 5 sinners, and she made Albedo. Who's to say she didn't make Lumine? You know? So there's a lot of things we don't know. All we know is that Ether's memories are fuzzy.
Of Genshin.
It is retconning.
Yet again, we're connecting dots
from I'm not sure the key.
5 years ago, trying to figure out how all these lore bombs.
Because like I don't think it's retcon, because breadcrumbs from the story that they're telling now existed since the beginning, right? Nothing that they're telling now is like a complete 180 from what originally started. It's not like they always said that the 2 siblings were there from the beginning, and it was always a guaranteed fact. We had plenty of things to be untrustworthy of the sibling since the beginning, right? Isn't the Tory going to show up? He will, guaranteed, because in a few later patches, Wanderer will come to Notcry exclusively to deal with the Tory. I don't know if that's going to be in 6.2 or 6.3, but Wanderer is coming to Notcry to deal with the Tory. So yeah, he's going to show up. I think we're going to have access to pretty much every Harbinger in Notcry, or at least see them in cutscenes and stuff, because in either videos or in actual game, every single one of them has already been kind of revealed, or at least mentioned. And Notcry is big for them, like it's huge for them. It's the weapon that they're trying to use against Celestia, so it has to be like they have to have a more active participation from now on, even because they're being phased out as the main villains, and like now is the time to just lore drop everything about them, since now the sinners are gonna be the main antagonist until the barrier from the planet is destroyed, right? Because like the way I see the game ending, or like the first part of the game ending, is when Teyvat was gonna lose the shield that it has, aka the false sky, and like expand its wings beyond Teyvat, because Teyvat is not a planet. Teyvat is a bubble inside of a planet, right? We know that the world itself is way bigger than Teyvat. Teyvat is just the area that Phanes, aka the Heavenly Principles, put around to protect. So it doesn't include the whole planet. It's a part of the planet. So once the sky is broken, once they remove the false sky and we have access to the whole planet, that's what I think it will be Genshin 2.0. So both are coming? Yeah. Pause.
Fit. The lore payoff has been incredible so far in Luna 1. Questions we've been asking for years are finally getting answers, and it feels like all those scattered pieces of lore we've been collecting over time are finally clicking into place. These writers clearly approach these Archon quests differently than anything we've seen before, and likewise, I had to completely rethink how I even approach these analysis videos.
Yeah, I think it was really good the way that they added the story quest from Llama and Flint into the Archon quest. Made the Archon quest in 2 pieces, and each piece gave the entire lore of the character without keeping the story quest separate. Because I gotta be honest, I haven't done many story quests from 5 stars at all. I did a few hangout events, but I haven't done the story quests because I feel like everything I need to know has to be in the Icon quest. So I basically did the entire Icon quest, but very few story quests. Whenever I felt like they had a lore bomb that really interested me. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with it. So they adding the story quest into the Archon quest was really good. I thought that was such a smart move.
There are so many lore threads to pull on and discuss, and we're going to cover all of them, even if it takes a series of videos. I still have to play the world quests. But first, let's ground ourselves in what the quests actually confirmed. So here are the top 5 lore reveals from version Luna 1, Acts 1, and 2, with the last one being the most mind-blowing of them all. First, Lauma knows the moon in the sky is fake. She's aware of the false sky. Remember when Malika punched the hole in Atlan's sky?
Yeah, when Mavwika punched a hole in the sky and we saw that the sky behind the false sky is red and we saw the shattered moon behind it, that was like, holy, that was a major lore point right there. No, I don't think anyone was expecting that. When I saw that, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe they're actually showing this for the first time. It was really cool. I thought that was like major, you know? And now they're finally expanding on that. I thought that was like the first seed that they were planning about, you know, the evolution of the story, in my opinion.
Or when Nahida bargained with Dotore to uncover the truth about it. Or even earlier in version 1.1 when Scaramouche flat out told Traveler and Mona the sky was fake. Well, Lauma figured this all out on her own. But imagine telling a devout civilization that the moon they've prayed to for generations is just a lie. A projection. Pixels. This is one of the biggest secrets in Teyvat, and it means a whole lot for both Notcry's history and the history of Teyvat as a whole. Second, the Fatui's Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau isn't just a lab, it's a weapons project. The Fatui are trying to build a weapon of mass destruction powered by Kuvaki. But the question is, what do
Yeah, I think even Piero will show up in Outcry. I really do.
they want to destroy? That's left unanswered in the quests, but if you pay attention to the Nodcry promotional trailers, there are hints. And those hints suggest the Fatui are preparing to do something extremely blasphemous. Third, Columbina.
Thank you for the hat
Backstory,
tray.
we learned how she became the moon goddess of the Frostmoon Scions, but then she drops these cryptic lines. Why is the moon treacherous? What does it mean when she says she wants to return to the moon that belongs to her? Obviously, these aren't throwaway lines. They tie into the mystery of Teyvat's 3 moons, which are finally starting to take center stage in the main story. She deserves her own section because we learned so much about her. Fourth, Rayrir. The sibling we encountered during the Archon quest turns out to be Rayrir, disguising himself. And here's the scary part, he was only using a fraction of his power, yet he still pulled off this nearly perfect imitation and caused considerable destruction. Rayrir.
Yeah, and like the thing that calls my attention the most about how he used the sibling to convince Traveler to get the moon marrow, um, was that the symbol of like the power, like the burst animation for Traveler without any elements, is the same that he had during that sequence. So like, this was something that was implanted on him, maybe memory wise since the beginning, because uh, it's like he always had that burst. It's like it was programmed into him to have that burst alongside Lumine since he arrived in Tibet, which is weird as hell. And this guy knew about it. How did he knew about it? So like I think there's a deeper connection between Karya and the sibling that we're being led on. They said the sibling when the ship crashed immediately went to Karya for reasons unknown. But in my opinion, Karya made the sibling just like Albedo was made by one of the sinners. You know. The technology already exists in Teyvat, and even Albedo, and like it's so easy that even Albedo was able to create Durin using the same kind of procedure that his mom did to create him, right? Um, and A created Wanderer in the same pretty much way as a clone. So like clones are pretty common in Teyvat, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if the sibling was a clone. because it is pretty clear that she's not a descender.
And here's the scary part. He was only using a fraction of his power, yet he still pulled off this nearly perfect imitation and caused considerable destruction. Rayrir is also the first of the 5 sinners of Conria that we've truly met, which makes you wonder if this is what 10% looks like. What's he like at full power?
True.
And finally, the biggest lore bomb of all. Traveler's spaceship first landed in Nordkrai. Traveler recognizes the Kuvaki energy here as the same power they felt during their arrival. But the memories don't line up. We only see 2 stars
See, this is what I mean.
in
Look.
the cutscenes of their arrival.
See, we're always told that these 2 stars were the siblings coming into the world. Pause. But like, they it always imply that they didn't come in a spaceship. They just can't travel by themselves without spaceships. Because they even have wings and golden swords and whatever. So we always thought that this was like their descension, but in reality, they had a spaceship all along. And it was only one spaceship, and both travel together, which is also a lie because we see later that Lumine never left the ship, right?
Yet they shared a single ship. If there was one ship, why 2 stars? Did Traveler misremember? Has their memories been tampered with? Or worse,
Yeah, I
was
bet
the
his
sibling
memory was
never
tampered
real
with,
to
and the
begin
sibling
with?
wasn't real.
There are other things I want to dive into outside of these 5 points, including one where I think Genshin may have revealed way too much of the Sarita's backstory a little earlier than maybe they should have. But we'll get to that in just a bit. Let's start with the first lore bomb we listed. Lauma knows the moon in the sky is fake. She knows about the false sky. Now, what even is the false sky, and why does it matter? We've seen characters talk about this for years. Cryptic books mention it, and even Scaramouche flat out told us about it. But in Nordkrai, this detail stops being a background mystery and becomes a central part of the story. Which begs the question, if the moon above us is a lie, what happens to a people who have built their entire identity around worshipping it? The false sky is basically a giant shield, a firmament wrapped around Teyvat by the heavenly principles.
See, this is what I told you guys, that the false sky is a bubble, but it's not a bubble around the whole world. It's a bubble around a specific area of the world. And this is where I think Genshin will go whenever we're done with all the chapters and we're done with Snezhnaya and so on. The next step will be this bubble will be broken, and once it's broken, we'll have the rest of the world to explore.
It was created after the Heavenly Principles defeated the 7 Dragon Sovereigns and claimed the world for humanity. Nabu Malikata, the goddess of flowers, and Sumeru remembered a time when 3 moons once hung in the heavens, but now we only see one. Those 3
Which is
moons
false.
were the Eternal Moon, the Frost Moon, and the Iridescent Moon, also known by their names Arya, Sonnet, and Canon. The moons were created by the Dragon King Nibelung to govern the world while he wandered the cosmos. Each moon had a role. The Eternal Moon, the largest, carried such immense kuvaki that it shaped the ocean tides. The Frost Moon was the brightest, its glow a lantern of night. The Iridescent Moon was faint and small, but produced fleeting halos of light when it did shine.
Keep in mind that she's not going to bring up on this video, but Iridescent Moon has ties with Raiden Shogun and with the God of Time. The way we know this is because when Raiden makes the tree, like when her sister makes the tree, it is said that the God of Time gave her the seed to make the tree, and she used the power of the Iridescent Moon to do so. So the Iridescent Moon also has ties to Conria because they have the whole Blood Moon lineage over there, but like, which is the Red Moon, which we believe to be a shadow of the Iridescent Moon. But I believe that the Iridescent Moon also has ties to the Raiden sisters, and I think that's going to be revealed later on because out of the 3 moons, the biggest moon, the Eternal Moon, was shattered, and the fragments were thrown around by the Fatui all across Nordkrai. The Frost Moon is still in the sky, dead. But the iridescent moon, nobody knows what happened to it. Its fragments have never been found. We know it's not in the sky, but we don't know what happened to it. Some people wager that the god of time has something to do with that, and the iridescent moon had something happen to it, and I think it's related to the Raiden sisters. We don't know yet. Nothing has been revealed yet, but I think there's gonna be more lore drops about the iridescent moon soon. Cause like it's the only one of the three moons that disappeared and nobody knows what happened to it. The Eternal Moon is broken down in pieces all across Notcry. Frost Moon is dead in the sky, but the iridescent moon just disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to it. Which is a big mystery.
But when the heavenly principles seized control of the world, the moons were forced under their authority. That's also when the false sky was created, cutting Teyvat off from the rest of the universe. Humanity thrived under the heavenly principles and their four shades, at least for a time. But then came the Great War of Vengeance. Nibelung returned, wielding the power of the Abyss against the heavenly principles. The Great War of Vengeance ended in ruin across Teyvat, the heavenly principles wounded but victorious.
Yeah, like we keep hearing that the heavenly principles was wounded and won the battle, right? Like this is the official lore. This is what they tell us. But at the same time, the heavenly principles has been quiet since the war on Korea, right? There hasn't been any new information about the heavenly principles. We only know that's supposed to be asleep or inert or like not acting, not doing anything, but we don't know what happened to it. And if there was something that would raise them up, even from a deep sleep, in my opinion, was what Farina did. Does anybody remember what Farina did? Farina destroyed her throne, destroyed her mandate as the Hydro Archon, and gave the power back to Hydro Sovereign in the shape of Neuvillette. It was the first documented case of an Archon giving up their power so the power could go back to one of the dragons. That's major. So like if the heavenly principles were like capable of doing something, that's when they would have done something. Because like that's something that they would never absolutely forgive in no circumstance at all if they were, remotely capable of acting. Which makes things really interesting because like if they cannot act, they're either completely incapacitated, dead, or in a deep sleep that they cannot get out of.
And what of the fate of the three moons? This is where things get messy. Some stories say the sisters killed each other. What's confirmed is that two moons were destroyed and only one is intact. Laoma's story and the Song of the Welcome Moon event give us the clearest picture of what happened when the moons were destroyed. When the Eternal Moon fell, it threw heaven and earth into chaos. The Eternal Moon controlled Teyvat's ocean tides, so when it was destroyed, it likely triggered the Great Floods, the so-called Diluvian period. These floods might have been caused by the sudden loss of the Eternal Moon's gravitational pull on the oceans. When the iridescent moon shattered, its crimson shadows sank into the abyssal.
See, when the iridescent moon shattered, its crimson shadow sank into the abyssal sea. That's why there's so many references to iridescent moon in Korea, because its shadow fell into the abyss. That's what they say, but no pieces were ever found. So I think there's something deeper here that they're not revealing yet.
Sea. And when the frost moon finally ceased to turn, entire nations collapsed. The dragons who felt betrayed by the moons celebrated their deaths. Although two of the moons were shattered, Skirk confirms that the frost moon is intact, but lifeless, though its will hasn't completely faded. And thanks to Laoma, we also know that the remnants scattered across Notcry, the ones the Fatui are so desperate to gather, are actually fragments of the Eternal Moon, Aria. Meanwhile, the iridescent moon's remains were never found at all.
Yeah, like I
its
said,
crimson shadow sank into the abyss, which raises a huge theory. That shadow of the iridescent moon may in fact be the crimson moon that Conria once worshipped. Which suddenly makes a lot more sense when you realize Rerir, the Conrian sinner we fight in Not Cry, is obsessed with the moons. But we'll talk more about him later. During Act 1, Lauma carries the weight of this knowledge of the false sky. She hides it, fearful of what it would do to her people. But by the end, she decides to reveal it anyway, even if it risks tearing her community apart. Because the Frost Moon Scions built their lives on faith in a fake moon. The fake sky is basically a giant screen. What we see as the moon and stars are nothing more than projections, just images cast across that surface. The Frost Moon Scions once came from Hyperborea, carrying silver blood and horns they believed marked them as ancestors of a divine heir.
Okay, so another really important thing that they don't really bring up a whole lot is what was Hyperborea. There are no, at least so far, um, cutscenes or any images or anything about Hyperborea at all. It's only briefly mentioned in some artifact sets and books. So we know it's a civilization that existed back when the second descender came, but we don't know anything about it. We haven't seen what it looked like. We haven't seen any major lore characters from it yet present in the game, except now like the Frost Moon Silence came from it. But you know that's just another like tiny little seed of lore that dropped, but we don't know anything further from it. What I think could happen is when the false sky is gone and we have access to the rest of the world. If the false sky was put around only, you know, the seven archons and so on, and there's a part of Hyperborea that was outside of it, maybe we'll encounter remnants of it on Genshin 2.0. That's my opinion. I think they're gonna save that that lore for future versions.
Their old laws were pretty brutal. Strict marriage rules and exile for those who disobeyed. It wasn't until 500 years ago when Isla became the first moon chanter that things changed. Isla reformed the Scions, ending the harsh laws, devoting them fully to moon worship instead. She even prophesied and witnessed the birth of Kutar, the so-called new moon and potential successor to the Frost Moon. But who exactly was the Frost Moon? The mystery of the moon stretches all the way back to version 1.0. In Heart's Desire, one of the first books you can grab in the game, they're introduced as Aria, Sonnet, and Canon. For years, we had no clue which name mapped to which moon. Finally, in the Luna 1 Archon quests, we get confirmation. Aria is the eternal moon, and the Frost Moon Scion's sacred relic, the Moon Marrow, is literally her remains, condensed into a miniature moon ringed with debris. That leaves Sonnet and Canon for the Frost Moon and the Iridescent Moon. My initial guess is Sonnet is the Frost Moon, because in Act 1, when we meet the Luonatar, we unlock an achievement called...
Not only because of that, but also because they always present the moves in order, right? RS, Sonnet, and Canon. It's always in that order. In every single book, in every single lore reveal, in every artifact set, they're always mentioned in that order. And we know that the Eternal Moon, which is Arya, was the biggest. Frost Moon was, you know, the average size one. And Canon was, you know, the Iridescent Moon, which is a tiny one. So it's pretty obvious to me that Canon is the Iridescent Moon and Sonnet is the Frost Moon because of the order they were always presented. It would really surprise me if they went in any other direction with that.
Called Maidens of Sonnet and Song. The Luonatar are special forms of Kuhenki that are blessed by the moon goddess, but the one we meet doesn't have Kalamina's blessing, which lines up with Skirk's note that the Frost Moon is lifeless but not fully gone. It's the only moon will left who could give a blessing. The achievement name Maidens of Sonnet and Song feels like a direct clue. If Sonnet is the Frost Moon, then Canon must be the Iridescent Moon, whose shadow became the Crimson Moon of Conria. This actually makes sense when you think about what a canon is in music. A canon starts with one melody, and then another voice copies it.
What
at a
is
set
that
interval,
melody?
overlapping until you get these layered lines. Basically a musical version of Follow the Leader.
I think this is kind of. This is the only part of the video I think she dropped the ball by going in depth about what a canon is. I feel this was a bit unnecessary. You know, I know she's trying to be as thorough as possible, but I think this was unnecessary.
This technique was especially common in Baroque music. So calling the iridescent moon or the crimson moon canon fits, because the abyss does the exact same thing. It imitates, it copies, it creates shadows of what's real. The Conrians even made rune machines that mimic organic creatures.
Okay, listen to this bit again. Listen to this bit.
It imitates, it copies, it creates shadows of what's real.
It imitates, it copies, it creates shadows of what's real. And who's the twin that showed up in Conria and, according to Nahida, was initially manifested in Conria, and they have no recollection or record of it before then? The sibling, right? That's what they describe right here is the same thing that we know about the sibling. So the chances of the sibling being a clone are huge. It's a pretty big chance. But the thing is, who tampered Traveler's memory to think that he had a sibling to begin with? That's the real question.
The Conrians even made rune machines that mimic organic creatures. The Abyss created a shadow version of Shuukoto, the Pyro Dragon Sovereign, and the Crimson Moon itself is described as just that, a shadow, a copy of the shattered iridescent moon. Crimson Moon is a name that should be familiar, because it ties directly to Arlecchino, who is still one of the most mysterious harbingers even this far past her release. She's a descendant of the Crimson Moon dynasty, and it's from them that she inherits the Bale Moon blood fire running through her veins. In her story quest, we see just how powerful it is. A potion can be brewed from her cursed blood, which completely erases a person's memories of the House of the Hearth. It can kill...
I also think the lore from Arlecchino here is kind of unnecessary. She's just going on about how Arlecchino's special blood is because of the Crimson Moon dynasty, and that's probably connected to her Descent Moon. But like, yeah, I agree, that's probably what it is, but like, this is kind of unnecessary in my opinion. It's too deep of a dive for this kind of video.
Someone's current self, or that chapter of their life. Even without the potion, her flames leave behind after images of those she's killed. Sometimes those after images even appear as conscious shadows. From childhood, her Bale Moon bloodfire has been both a weapon and a threat to her own body. It first burned her fingers, then reached up to her arms, and now she constantly waits for the day it reaches her heart. But here's where things get really interesting. Arlecchino's Crimson Moon bloodline mirrors the Frost Moon Scions. The Frost Moon Scions descend from Hyperborea, and their sacred lineage gives them silver blood. Centuries later, Lauma's silver blood is considered rare but a miracle, a sign that maybe the moon goddess had not abandoned her people. It made her a symbol of hope, and with it came immense expectation. Lauma's silver blood makes her attuned with animals, nature, and lunar power itself. Drops of her blood could even heal those suffering from Kuvaki sensitivity. So while Arlecchino's flames erase memory and bring about a kind of death of the self, Lauma's silver blood preserves life. Two bloodlines both blessed or cursed by the moons. And when you put those side by side, it almost feels like we're looking at reflections of the four shades.
Okay, I can agree with her point here that we have two bloodlines that were kind of blessed by the powers, right? The divine powers, one death, the other life. So there should be another two, one by time and the other by space, but we haven't encountered them yet, and maybe we won't at all. So yeah, but like, I think she went on too long of a explanation about this. Even though it's a lot relevant, I think it's not relevant to this topic at hand.
Life, death, time, and space. After all, there are four shades, and there are 4 moons. 3 moons plus the prophecy of a new moon. That parallel is probably not a coincidence. The 4 shades were created by the heavenly principles, the same being who created the false sky, the massive shield wrapped around the planet. The false sky is just a projection, and the real sky lies beyond its barrier. This is exactly why Laoma's decision in the Act 1 Archon quest matters so much. If the Scions kept devoting themselves to the moon they see in the sky, their faith would be wasted on an illusion. And that's why she risks everything to reveal the truth. For her, it's about breaking a cycle and tearing down blind devotion to a false image so her people can finally step into a future where they don't have to depend on a power beyond themselves. Laoma is aware of the false sky, and so are the Fatui, which brings us to the next major reveal confirmed in the Nodcry Archon quests. The Fatui's Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau isn't just a lab, it's a weapons project. The Fatui are trying to build a massive weapon powered by Kuvaki, but the question is, what do they want to destroy? Who or what is the target?
But also, how exactly the weapon works. Because, like, we know that they brought down pieces of the Eternal Moon, right? That were already in the sky. They brought down that to Nodcry, right? But, like, the question is, do they fire a giant Kuvaki beam at the false sky to destroy it? Or are they going to try to pull the Frost Moon down with the Kuvaki beam acting as a huge magnet? So, like, they're either going to try to shoot the barrier down with a big, laser, or they're going to try to pull the moon towards Teyvat to destroy the barrier with, the impact. Which we don't know exactly how it works yet, but that's pretty interesting.
Tui's goals in the overarching story are 1. To collect all the Archon's Gnosis, 2. Wage war against Celestia, and 3. Burn away the old world. We already know why they want the Gnosis, and I'll get to that in a bit. The Fatui Harbingers have been summoned back to Snezhnaya and sent straight into Nodcry under the highest order, the Pale Star Edict. Their mission is to retrieve Columbina, who had resigned from her position and disappeared somewhere in the region. So I think we're going to...
The only thing that we knew from Columbina before 6.0 was she crying on top of a Signora's coffin. That's all. Actually, laughing. She hugged the coffin and laughed. Nobody even knew why. The only hint that they gave us as to why she did that was, like, she said, La Signora was one of the few people that was nice to her from the Fatui. One of the only 3 people. But like, it's still kind of, a crazy way to honor someone by, like, laughing, hugging their coffin. But it is what it is.
To see way more than just Ettore and Sandrone in this version. The Fatui's presence in Nodcry has been nothing short of hostile, and the Archon quests finally give us a full picture of just how much damage they've already caused. Nodcry is supposed to be autonomous, but the Fatui are trying to drag it back under the Sarita's control, claiming it as sovereign Snezhnayan territory. To make things worse, they've been relentlessly harassing the Frostmoon Scions, demanding not only the whereabouts of Columbina, but also their most sacred relic, the Moon Marrow. And their aggression doesn't stop there. The Fatui have actually pulled down remnants of the Eternal Moon itself. One remnant crashed into Hisi Island, another onto Paha Isle, and on top of that second impact site, they've built something called the Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau, the foundation of a massive weapon project powered by Kuvaki, a Fatui Death Star. And here's the chilling part. We don't know yet what the target of that weapon is supposed to be, but we do have some clues. First is in the God's Limits teaser. It heavily suggests that the Fatui might actually be planning to kill a god. And the most obvious target, the Heavenly Principles.
Yeah, but, like, whenever we have that video of the 4 gods discussing, and they mentioned that the Piero can actually see them, right? The way that they face Piero being able to look at them and notice them is of, like, surprise, but at the same time kind of like acknowledgement. They're not afraid. I don't think even a Kuvaki cannon could bring down Heavenly Principles. You couldn't even bring down the four shades, much less, the god himself. Even if the god is asleep, right? So I don't think that's what it is, personally. I think their plan is to just break. I don't think they plan on killing the heavenly principles. I think they just plan on breaking the false sky, and uh, I don't think they're gonna directly confront the heavenly principles at all.
We're told they're currently asleep, so really, what better time for the Fatui to strike than now? In Prelude to Moonlight, Nicole Rain leaves us with one cryptic line.
While the Fatui look to the stars above, trying in vain to seize the false firmament.
This gives us reason to believe that the Fatui's real goal is to destroy the false
True.
sky, the barrier separating Teyvat from the rest of the universe. And they might actually have two different ways to do it.
I hate how nobody talks about how Teyvat is a bubble and not a planet. And like the only people actually mentioned that whenever we had the anime that featured Skirk, and we saw that the planet is huge. It's a lot bigger than the continents we have access to. So Skirk breaks kind of a very tiny piece of the bubble to get in, like Teyvat itself. But like, I really think that HoYoverse should start differentiating the planet from Teyvat. Teyvat is only the bubble. The planet itself is a lot bigger than Teyvat alone.
Either they're planning to fire a massive Kuvaki-powered laser directly at the false sky, or they're trying to harness Kuvaki's magnetism to drag the corpse of the frost moon back down, letting its impact shatter the false sky itself. We already know the Fatui have managed to breach the false sky before. They were able to bring down the remnants of the eternal moon, with fragments crashing into Nodcry. Lauma says herself she met Columbina not long after those remnants fell, and Columbina admits she's already fulfilled her oath to the Tsaritsa, though at the cost of exhausting a huge amount of her own power. That suggests it was Columbina who helped pull those moon remnants down in the first place, which leads us to another possibility. Maybe the Fatui need those fragments of the eternal moon to build up enough Kuvaki energy to bring the frost moon, another moon, down.
True.
But that leaves us with the biggest question of all. What does destroying the false sky actually achieve for the Fatui?
Yeah.
What's the endgame here? We don't have solid confirmation yet, but we can make some pretty strong guesses. And from what I can see, there are two major things the Fatui might be after, with the first one being extremely game-breaking. Destroying the false sky will end Celestia's monopoly on fate. If the false sky is what encodes the destinies of everyone in Teyvat, then breaking it might free everyone from the script Celestia has imposed on them since the very beginning. Now, to understand this theory, we need to go all the way to version 1.1 and the Unreconciled Stars event. This was the first time we ever heard the words, "the sky is fake," and it came from none other than Scaramouche, a Fatui harbinger. During the event, Mondstadt observed a strange phenomenon where falling stars were crashing down onto Teyvat. Traveler, Paimon, Mona, and Fischl went to investigate. But here's the problem. If the false sky is really a barrier separating Teyvat from the rest of the universe, then how can stars even fall through it? Even weakened, it shouldn't just let anything slip by. The Fatui project just started a couple months ago according to Lauma, which leads to the unsettling possibility the stars we've been looking at this whole time might not even be real. Think about it. In the night sky, stars sometimes appear in...
Yeah, but we already knew that. If the sky is false, the stars that we can see are not real stars. They're just... And I think it was already clarified that those are not... those are just fruits from the tree. Those are not really stars. And the fruits of the tree are basically constellations of characters, right? So it's not like we don't know what it is. Already, that was already clarified. It's all fruits of Irminsul that are constellations of all the inhabitants of that bubble.
in front of...
Which, by the way, were also explained to be part of a samsara. A samsara is like a repeating chain of events, and the whole point of the Sumeru Archon quest was to clarify to us that we're stuck inside of a samsara, which is like a sequence of events that repeats itself every hundreds of years. And the reason we know that is because every person that has a vision has a constellation, and constellation is just like a secondary version of themselves in memories. So they just gain power by gaining memories.
The moon. That makes no sense in the real universe. And in Unreconciled Stars, Mona even says that those meteorites, those so-called falling stars, came from someone's constellation. But how could that be possible? The answer may lie in the Irminsul. Irminsul is the great tree that records all the history and memories of Teyvat. It can even grow crystalline Irminsul fruits like the ones we saw in the Energy Amplifier initiation event. And if you look closely at the fallen stars from Unreconciled Stars, they're identical to Irminsul fruits. That means everyone's constellation isn't made of real stars at all. They're made from the arrangement of Irminsul fruits embedded into the false sky. The heavenly principles created the false sky, and by extension, they also created the constellations humanity sees above. These constellations encode people's fates. Each fruit records and determines the past, present, and future of every person in Teyvat. Therefore, constellations equal fate itself. Astrologists like Mona can read them to determine a character's fate, but now we know these fates are predetermined. They might even be censored, rewritten, or manipulated versions of what destiny was supposed to be. And that's exactly why the Traveler stands out. They don't have a constellation until the moment they resonated with the Statue of the Seven, which means they're not bound by Celestia's script. They're free in a way no one else in Teyvat is. So when you put all of this together, the Fatui's plan starts to make terrifying sense. If the false sky is what contains these false stars, the constellations that bind humanity to Celestia's will, then destroying it would break Celestia's control of fate. Whether that would truly liberate everyone or just unleash chaos, that's the question we're left with. Remember,
keep in mind that a lot of the Fatui members are ex-Kanrians, including Piero, right? So like they had access to the Kanrian technology, like the AK new Abyss technology, like the Loom of Fate. The Loom of Fate is supposed to be a tool to rewrite fate. And it obviously only works because the fate in Teyvat is controlled by the Irminsul. So like, it all ties up to the fact that Irminsul acts both as a false sky and as a barrier preventing entry, but also by keeping people chained together in the samsara that repeats itself. And like their previous lives are like fruits. They fall down and give them memories.
the false sky is trying to protect us from something out there. The Irminsul is most likely inspired by Yggdrasil, the world tree from Norse mythology. In those stories, Yggdrasil's branches stretch all the way up into the heavens. Genshin mirrors that idea with the Irminsul. It's technically the world tree of Teyvat. Its roots are the ley lines, and its fruits are the stars which record and shape everyone's fates. Now here's where things get interesting. In that land, the Sage of the Sacred Flame tells us that the heavenly principles converted the ley lines into a girdle that defends the planet. If we take that literally, it means the ley lines, the roots and branches of Irminsul, were reshaped into a kind of shield around Teyvat. And that shield is what we now call the false sky.
True.
By this logic, we can assume that the false sky was built out of the Irminsul itself. The branches of the world tree were converted into a dome that locks Teyvat off from the real universe, while its stars are just projections of Irminsul's data. And if that's true, then destroying the Irminsul with a Kuvaki-powered weapon wouldn't just shatter the barrier around Teyvat, it would also destroy the database holding the entire memory of the old world. So, destroying the Irminsul tree would thereby accomplish the Fatui's goals to create a new world. The second reason the Fatui might want to destroy the false sky...
See, nobody ever talks about how Teyvat is not the planet. It pisses me off. Nobody ever talks about that. It's crazy to me. Like, would they expect Genshin 2.0 to be out in space? No. That could possibly be 3.0, but I think 2.0 will be right here on the planet outside Teyvat.
Involves the new moon. Destroying the false sky could allow the new moon to finally materialize. Columbina does say that two moons will not rise at the same time, let alone consume one another. And to really understand what that means, we have to talk about Columbina and what we actually learn about her during the Luna 1 Archon quests. According to Lauma, Kutar was born on Hisi Island about 500 years ago. Her birth was prophesied and witnessed by Ayla, the very first moon chanter of the Frost Moon Scions. seance. She quietly recorded the miracle and even carved a statue to honor it. The legend says that Kutaru's birth was an event accompanied by a sudden appearance of countless kuhenki. These creatures wove moonlight itself into silken garments that clothed her like a goddess. From that day on, the kuhenki were seen as Kutaru's familiars. Their instinct to protect her, to bring joy to her, even to guide travelers to hidden treasures, traces all the way back to that moment. And here's a fun detail. The kuhenki actually resemble rabbits, which is no accident because it ties directly to the old myth of the rabbit on the moon. You've probably heard of it. The markings on the moon's surface across different cultures are seen as the outline of a rabbit. In Chinese folklore, there's the moon rabbit or jade rabbit Yutu, who lives alongside the moon goddess Chang'e and endlessly pounds the elixir of life. Columbina herself tells us that it all started when the frost moon scions found her. Before she even understood what was happening, they were already calling her their goddess, and in her own words, she had no reason to decline. But even then, she admitted something was always missing. That emptiness only fueled the scions' greed and doubt. Over time, Columbina realized this place was never truly her home. The scions asked her for everything. They wanted her to forge weapons, drive out their enemies, and help them expand their territory. And she did. She gave and gave until one day she simply couldn't anymore. That's when she asked the question that still lingers: if mortals can turn to the gods when they are powerless, then who do the gods turn to when they have nothing left to give?
Columbina has the potential to be stronger than any Archon, because Archons gain the authority of one specific element of the 7 elements, which was made from phlogiston, right? And was the authority of a dragon. The moons, when they were around and alive, they were stronger than the dragons. The dragons could not defeat the moons. We don't know exactly how the moons were destroyed. It could possibly have been Nibelung using the power of the abyss. And we know that the moons eventually... Nibelung destroyed them because they turned to the heavenly principles, right? But like, if Columbina gains her full power, she has the potential to be stronger than any Archon because she controls Kuvaki, which is basically an alternative to phlogiston on the same level. And phlogiston is all the 7 elements combined. So that she controls as much power as all 7 of them combined. If she's at full power, obviously she's not gonna be, but like, she has the potential to grow to that point.
And with that, she left, only to experience similar treatment in the Fatui. The only ones who ever seemed to treat her well were Arlecchino, Sandrone, and apparently La Signora. But just a few months ago, after the 2 ancient moon remnants fell from the sky, Columbina was spotted on Hisi Island once again. That's when the Fatui presence in Nodcry turned aggressive. They've been harassing the Scions ever since, and according to Sandrone, there's even an official search warrant out for her, although Sandrone herself doesn't turn Columbina in. What makes Columbina even more mysterious is her name, or rather, her lack of one. Kutar is the title the Frostmoon Scions gave her, taken from Hure Kutar, their name for the frost moon. Columbina is the name she received from the Fatui, but she claims she doesn't know her true name at all. Columbina was born in Teyvat alone, with no one around to name her. But here's the real question. What even is Columbina? The Frost Moon Scions worship her as a new moon, but she herself says her power actually comes from the Frost Moon. So if that's the case, does that make her the true new moon? Or is she just the rebirth of the Frost Moon itself? After all, Skirk told us that the will of the Frost Moon hasn't fully dissipated. If that's true, then maybe Columbina is simply that will reborn into a new form. But hold on, it gets even more confusing. In Nodcry's reputation system, Silver Moon Hall Solanic Chronicles, when you finish all the quests, you unlock the wings of the Silent Moon Wind Glider. Its description reads, a stylized wing glider gifted to you as a mark of the Welkin Moon's acknowledgement and recognition.
Yeah, and even when you do, even like the event that we had before Notcry, and even the expansion itself is called the Song of the Welkin Moon. So like, where Columbina is obviously the Welkin Moon as the title, right? So she's not a piece of the frost. She's not the reborn frost moon. She's not reborn iridescent moon, and she's not the fourth moon, the rumored fourth moon that was never born and had its pieces scattered across Nokrai. She's the Welkin moon, which is like a reflection of the frost moon, and it is inside the fall sky. So she's like a reflection, like a reflected light of the real moon, of the real frost moon, which is the Welkin moon.
So wait a second, does that mean Columbina isn't the frost moon or the new moon at all, but actually the Welkin moon? So now we're left with this mess of possibilities. Is Columbina the frost moon reborn, the prophesied new moon, or the avatar of the Welkin moon itself? Of course, one possibility is that Columbina really is just the frost moon reborn. That's the simplest explanation. If she really is the frost moon reborn, then at some point we can probably expect her to merge with the lingering will of the frost moon that's still kicking around. But I think there's actually a way for all of it to be true at the same time. That she's the frost moon reborn, the new moon, and the Welkin moon. Here's how I picture it. The word Welkin is an old term that means sky or heaven, but more specifically, it refers to the vault of the sky or the firmament in 12th century Middle English. So when we talk about the Welkin moon, we can literally translate that to the moon of the fall sky. In other words, the Welkin moon isn't its own celestial body at all. It's a projection. Think of it like taking a picture of the frost moon and beaming it onto a giant screen.
Yeah.
The
Like
real moon
a,
is
like
still
a
there,
reflection.
but what we see in the sky is just the projection, the Welkin moon, an imperfect copy. Now, Columbina herself said that each moon belonged to a moon goddess, so here's the idea. When she was born, the closest moon she could latch onto wasn't the original frost moon. It was the Welkin moon, the projection or copy of the frost moon. That's why she refers to herself as carrying the frost moon's power, but also why she can't fully call herself the frost moon either. In a weird way, the frost moon is like her mother. The lullaby she sings, if taken literally, even hints at that connection, with the frost moon as the mother and her as the daughter. The frost moon exists first, and because of it, the Welkin moon, the imperfect copy, exists too. Columbina tells us her one wish, to return to the moon, to her home where her story is written. If Columbina really is the Welkin moon, then she isn't the frost moon itself.
True.
She's currently an imperfect copy of its power, which means the home she might long to return to wouldn't be the projection in the fall sky, but the real frost moon that projection was copied from. She says her story was written on the moon, but if she's just the avatar of its projection, then it explains why her story feels incomplete. It's like she's been scribbled on the wrong pages of a book, cut from the original, never properly bound into the story she belongs to. To her, the true frost moon is where her full story should be written. But here in Teyvat, under the fall sky, that first half of her story has been erased, censored, or maybe even rewritten. Either Columbina is the Welkin moon itself, or she isn't, and she's simply the will of the frost moon reborn into a new form. For now, I lean toward the first theory because it's the only way her cryptic messages really make sense. There's something really interesting we need to stop and talk about. The Hymns of the Far North, a book series you can find in-game, reveals a lot about Nodcry. Honestly, maybe too much. It might even be spoiling the future of Genshin's story, so I actually don't know how I feel about it being released so early. We'll dive deeper into this later, but we need to talk about it, especially because one part of it could reveal the Sarita's entire backstory. But
Yeah, that bit is really interesting. I think that's the most interesting part of the entire video. If you're already kind of lore savvy, that's like a big revelation that nobody was expecting, and like could potentially tell the events of what will happen on the next expansion.
But here's a key detail for now. One of the hymns is actually a prayer to Istaroth, the goddess of time, asking her to protect the 4 imprisoned moons. Now pair that with what we learn in the Song of the Welkin Moon web event, where Nodcry itself is described as the remnant of a 4th moon that failed to fully materialize. This mysterious 4th moon might actually connect to the story told in Anepha's weapon, the Fractured Halo. Thousands of years ago, after the Heavenly Principles had already conquered Teyvat, but before the Great War of Vengeance, the Pyro Sovereign stepped in to stop the dragons and the Sage of the Sacred Flame from creating another moon, something they called the Great Miracle of Moon Forging. It makes sense why we find a prayer to Istaroth, the god of time, begging her to protect the 4 imprisoned moons. It suggests that at the time, the 4th moon project was already underway and Istaroth was still actively being worshipped. 4 moons make sense for Columbina as well, who should be a goddess of her own moon. But if there really was an attempt to forge a 4th moon, then we already know how that story ended. The project failed, and the land of Nodcry itself was formed over the remains of that 4th moon.
Yeah, did you notice that whenever it rains in Outcry, it's the only area in the game that the rain goes upwards? That's because we're not actually stepping on normal land. We're stepping on pieces of the moon that are responsible for magnetism. So that whenever the rain falls, it falls down, but also, goes back up because of the gravity of the moon.
That never materialized, which would mean Nodcry is literally the corpse of a failed
Yep.
celestial body. So if Nodcry is basically the corpse of that failed 4th moon, then what does that make Columbina? She might be the living continuation of what that moon was supposed to become. And that's where a paradox comes in. Her essence or her powers ties back to the frost moon, but her birth, her origin, and destiny are tied to a 4th moon that failed to materialize. And sitting right between the true frost moon and the failed 4th moon, the Welkin moon. That explains Lauma's words, the prophecy of the moon goddess came to pass, though not quite. Columbina is a moon goddess, but maybe not a perfect one. At least, not yet. Let's talk about Columbina's flowers.
Yes, it has the
These
potential to be
flowers have
stronger
grown
than
in
any
Nodcry for
Archon.
generations, and they're extremely sensitive to the ebb and flow of Kuvaki. When Columbina is calm, the flowers glow blue. When she's angry, they turn red. And when she's unwell, the flowers in her domain fade to white.
And like colors blue, white, and red are the colors of the 3 moons. I don't think she's gonna mention that, but those 3 colors are attributed to the moons themselves. Red is the iridescent moon, white is the frost moon, and blue is the eternal moon.
I think this might be connected to the fall sky itself. Remember, the fall sky projects a blue sky, but is actually made of red pixels. So if Columbina really is tied to the Welkin moon or the false sky moon, maybe her condition reflects the health of the false sky. Alice once claimed that the borders of Teyvat are weakening, and if we look at the description of the all-devouring narwhal, it suggests that Teyvat is separated from the larger universe by barriers created by some higher power. But those barriers have been constantly under pressure, with the universe itself trying to infiltrate Teyvat. That means the false sky could be more fragile now than it has ever been. And the Fatui dragging down moon remnants is probably only making things worse.
True.
So if Columbina really is the Welkin moon, that could be dangerous for her and for everyone else. But it might also mean she's far more powerful than we realize, especially if, right now, she's only an incomplete moon goddess. And this could explain something else. It might be why Alice herself is a Nodcry. If she's actually the sustainer of the world's borders, if those borders are the false sky, then the Fatui trying to break or claim it would directly threaten her domain. And speaking of Alice, we can't forget about her colleague Nicole Rain, because I think she might have actually made a sneaky appearance in Act 2 of the Luna 1 arc.
Okay, so Fontaine had Arlecchino, Netlin had Skirk. I think Nightcry will have Nicole Rain. I think Nicole Rain is actually gonna be the Arlecchino of Nightcry. The Skirk of Nightcry, the one character that goes and brings about a new power level at the very end of the expansion. That's my opinion. I think when Nicole Rain becomes playable, we're gonna have another power creep, and she's gonna bring about the next a big exactly like Arlecchino and Skirk did, a big lore reveal. A character everybody's gonna pull for because she's gonna be extremely strong, and bring about a little bit of a hint of the events of the next expansion. She's definitely an angel and extremely powerful.
Conquest. When Flynn's Traveler and Paimon investigate the Wild Hunt, they're suddenly helped by a mysterious ghost radiating golden power. Flynn also notices that during the Kuvaki cannon blast, several bolts aimed at Hisi Island were blocked. He suspects Columbina, but it wasn't her. I think it was Nicole Rain. In the Song of the Welkin Moon teaser, we actually see her on Hisi Island, activating her golden halo and wings. Nicole Rain is a member of the Hexen Circle, but also likely an angel or Seelie. Her name also seems inspired by Nicole Rain Lipot, the astronomer and human computer who accurately predicted Halley's Comet's return dates and was honored with both an asteroid and a lunar crater named after her. One interesting detail is that Nicole Rain is mute. She can only communicate telepathically. Columbina, on the other hand, always wears a veil over her eyes. And after seeing how Rhindaughter merged with Nibirius, the god of life, I feel like anything is possible at this point. This is definitely heavy speculation, but what if Nicole Rain, like Columbina, is actually a moon goddess too? Maybe even the residual will of the frost moon itself. Again, this is strictly a theory, but the witches have a pretty...
I really don't think that's the case. I don't think she's... I think she's above the moons. I don't think she's related to the moons. I think she's an angel, sure, but not... she's not Columbina's mother. Because, like, Columbina was born from the Woking moon, which is a reflection of frost moon. And Nicole Rain is not the will of the frost moon at all. I think she's an angel. I think she's the last remaining angel from the angel civilizations that existed at the very beginning of the world.
Stacked roster working behind the scenes. But while she's working in the background, another figure is stepping forward. Rayhir of Solnari, whose obsession with the moons fuels more chaos in Nodcry. He's one of the 5 sinners of Conria and the first one we've actually met face to face. Technically, we did meet Vedderfolnir, Danesliv's older brother, but that was...
Yeah, he was inside the crystal on the Kari Bear quest. So we don't actually interact with this guy at all. We just see the crystal, that's it. The crystal does speak to us, but that's it. And obviously, they're gonna keep this guy in secret up until the Kinyu Zone. Maybe in Snezhnaya or after, on the Karya chapter. I actually think the Karya chapter will involve some kind of like time shenanigans, because obviously Karya is destroyed now. But yeah.
Only through our siblings' memory in the Caribbear Archon quest, so I don't really count it as a direct meeting. What's exciting here is that Genshin finally confirmed something we've been theorizing on this channel for a long time. Rayrir is the leader of the Wild Hunt in Nodcry. Back in Conria, Rayrir was considered one of the best among his peers, standing alongside Sirtologi, Rhindaughter, Vedderfolnir, and Hroptatyr. But even then, he stood out for one thing, an alleged obsessive fixation on the moons. After he and the others divided abyssal power amongst themselves, they didn't use it to protect their homeland or save Conria. Instead, they abandoned it. That betrayal is what earned them their infamous title, the 5 Sinners of Conria. At some point after the Cataclysm, Rayrir formed the Wild Hunt. But
there's another thing nobody talks about, which is really important, and that's that remember the King of Conria took the sibling under his wings, said they were the savior of Conria, and made them consume an insane amount of abyssal power. Consume or control or whatever, right? What we don't know is whether that power was divided among the 5 sinners. My opinion is that it was. In other words, the fake traveler, the sibling, was the source of power for the sinners by being able to basically catalyze insane amounts of abyssal power. But like that's still up in the air, because that even would go against timeline, the current timeline that we have, and that if that was ever revealed, it would obviously break the timeline that we have for the siblings. So I think if they ever reveal that, it's gonna be at the very end of the current arc.
Something happened to him that changed everything. He fell into what's described as the moon's reflection, a place considered a point of no return. From that moment, the wild hunt began to spiral out of control. Somehow Rayrir survived, being torn into countless pieces and hurled into the swirling chaos of time itself. Almost sounds like he went through a black hole. Thanks to the abyssal power he carried, possibly combined with Renova's curse of immortality, his will lived on even though his physical body was completely destroyed. His remains were scattered across Nodcry, but his will was strong enough to pull fragments of himself back together, creating a broken phantom-like form. His main component, or his heart, ended up sealed inside Flynn's lantern. It's interesting that Rayrir's body appears to have been shattered into crystals, very similar to Vedderfalnir, another of the sinners who we learned in the Caribou Archon quest, speaks from a massive crystal. This might be one of the punishments placed on the sinners, or maybe even their crazy experiment, and it could explain why Rhyndaughtr had to merge with the heart of Nibirius, the god of life, just to survive. Rayrir has the power to copy other characters, though not perfectly. It's the same trait we've observed with the Abyss, and one that Conria has tried to reproduce with their own machines. During this quest, he even disguised himself as our sibling, which means the sibling we explored the domain with wasn't our real sibling at all. At the very end of the Act 2 Luna 1 Archon quest, we find out that
I don't think we even have a real sibling.
Varka was tracking Rayrir the whole time. There's actually a subtle hint about this right at the beginning of Act 1. When Traveler and Paimon visit the flagship, Damien mentions that Varka had left for Lake Amsvartnir. The location isn't accessible in-game yet, but its name already gives us a huge clue. In Norse mythology, Amsvartnir means pitch black. It's the lake that contains the island Lingvi, the place where the gods bound Fenrir, the monstrous wolf destined to break free during Ragnarok. Fenrir helps to ignite the flames that bring about the end of the world.
Also keep in mind that Durin was made from flesh from the beast of Marjavari. There's still an island on Netland that is completely covered by fog that we have not visited, which is the Marjavari. We visit Marjavari in a dream, not really a dream, but like almost like a domain when Bennett finds his parents. But we never actually go there. It's not available to us. It's an island covered in fog. I think that island would be a part of Nodcry at some point. That's definitely gonna come up. There's also a place in Mondstadt called Port Dormant, which was, rumored since the beginning of the game, and has ties to Snezhnaya, which is also a possible location for 6.0. I don't think 6.0 will expand the Nodcry map too much, because Nodcry is the remnants of a moon, so it can't be like as expansive territorially as the other regions. What I think will happen is we're gonna go back to places in other continents to visit them. There's already hints that we're gonna visit a flooded Mondstadt, and I think that's gonna be related to Port Dormant and also the whole Marjavari situation.
The collapse of human society, and even the death of Odin himself. So, if Varka and his knights were heading to Lake Amsvartnir, it strongly suggests they're investigating something abyssal in nature. And since he was on Rayrir's trail the entire time, this could mean Lake Amsvartnir is close to where Rayrir's main domain might be revealed in the...
There's also rumors that Varka himself is not going to be human for much longer. I don't know if the state that we're gonna pull for him will be his human form or after whatever happens to him, but like there's very strong hints that he's not gonna be human for much longer. Something will happen to Varka that will cause him to not be human. Nobody knows what that is. It was just hinted that he's gonna suffer a change, but nobody knows with what exactly. I have two guesses. Guess number one, some power from Rayrir will transform him. Guess number two, Capitano. Because like Capitano is in a state where he cannot move around, he cannot do anything. He's just there as a vessel for souls, sitting in a throne, right? But like, let's say Capitano knows of something or has a way to defeat Rayrir, so like Varka has to fuse with him. I don't know yet what's gonna happen, but I know that we have leaks that Varka won't remain human for much longer.
In the future. Reyrer's title is Rayher of Solnari, which translates to Moon Hunter or Avenger of the Moon. But here's the strange part. We don't actually know what Solnari is. The only other time we've seen the word is in the Song of the Welcome Moon teaser in a note Alice was holding. That note lists 3 words: Aralos, Solnari, and Canon. The names of the 3 moons are always introduced in the same order: Aria, Sonnet, and Canon. That order might be important because it suggests that Sonnet could actually be tied to Solnari,
True.
possibly even the crimson moon that Conrio once worshipped. Originally, we theorized that Sonnet might be the frost moon, mainly because of the Lunatar achievement. But Alice's note points in a different direction, hinting that Sonnet could instead be the iridescent moon. At this point, there's evidence to support both possibilities, but honestly, we don't have enough confirmation that Conrio once...
Here's my opinion. I don't think these are names for the moons. I think those are the names of the shadow moons. That's my theory. I think Solnari is the opposite of Sonnet, is the shadow of Sonnet. So the reason why Alice would have those 3 names written down is because they represent the shadows of the 3 moons and enemies that we're gonna have to face. That's my opinion.
Worshipped. Originally, we theorized that Sonnet might be the frost moon, mainly because of the Lunatar achievement. But Alice's note points in a different direction, hinting that Sonnet could instead be the iridescent moon. At this point, there's evidence to support both possibilities, but honestly, we don't have enough confirmation to say for sure whether Sonnet is the frost moon or the iridescent moon. Although personally, I lean more on Sonnet being the frost moon. Now, Canon in Alice's notes is the easiest to make sense of, since we literally saw Ainos Guvaki Canon in the Act 2 Archon quest. That leaves Aralos and Solnari. If you flip Aralos backwards, you get Solara, which could connect to the sun. As for Solnari, it might be a compound of 2 Germanic words, Sol meaning sun and Nari meaning narrow, or in Old Norse, Nar meaning corpse. Put together, sun and corpse instantly make me think of an eclipse, the sun hidden behind the moon. The moon itself is just a lifeless corpse in the true sky. And of course, eclipses are heavily tied to Conria's imagery. We already know Conria worshipped the crimson moon, and we've speculated that this crimson moon was actually the shadow of the destroyed iridescent moon that sank into the abyss. So here's a theory. What if Rayrer, like Arlecchino, was a descendant of the Crimson Moon dynasty? If he carried Bale Moon Bloodfire, that might even explain how he was able to wield Kuvaki. Now I'll admit, there isn't much evidence for that yet. Again, it's more of a theory than a confirmation, but it would create some fascinating parallels between Rayrer and Arlecchino. Also, Rayrer of Solnari could now read as the Avenger of the Crimson Moon dynasty. What we do know is that Rayrer is also called the Blasphemy of Death. A while back on this channel, we theorized that the 5 sinners of Conria might be trying to either imitate or steal the powers of the heavenly principles in the 4 shades: life, death, time, and space. Rhindaughter's status backs this up, especially with her merging with Nibirius, the god of life, and the Stygian onslaught weapon descriptions that hint at these powers. For Rayrer specifically, his weapon is called the Shattered Moon, a polearm
Rayrer is the personification of the power that goes against the Shade of Death. He's literally Death's defiance. So he, not only in what he did, surviving all this time, even though he had the curse, but also because he's thematically about like an extension of death, but like a defiance of it. So Nibirius was the shade of life and was consumed by gold, Rhindaughter, and Rayrer is the shade of death. So we're back at missing time and space. Space is gone even in the cutscenes, even in the like little story. Nobody knows what space is. But hey, we haven't encountered the counterparty to time yet, which is really interesting and may be coming up very soon.
Described as a glorious but illusory weapon infused with the power of death, born from the depths of the ley line.
Actually, I think if there's a shade that's counterpart to time, it's Vedefalner. And the reason why I think that is because in the Carry Bear quest line, when we are within the twins' memory, watching Vetafoner, Dainsleif tells us that Vetafoner can see through time. He can see across time. So if he ever saw the Traveler, even at that moment, in a memory, it would mean that it was the same thing as him seeing Traveler in real time, in the present time. So I think Vetafoner is the correspondent shade that goes against time.
And if the version
Is
of
going to be
Rayru
Dio?
we
Quite
fought in
possibly.
Notcry was only 10% of his full power, I honestly can't wait to see what he's like at 100%. Don't get me wrong though, Dainsleif would still clear him. During the end of Act 2, Rayru also screams out the name Thelindis. The thing is, we don't actually know of any character by that name yet, but the word itself might give us a clue. Tholin comes from ancient Greek, meaning sepia ink. In science, a tholin is a reddish organic component that shows up on the surfaces and in the atmospheres of outer solar system bodies like the moon Titan or Pluto. They're thought to play an important role in the origins of life. So what does that tell us? The fact that tholins are tied to outer solar system bodies makes me wonder if Thelindis might be an outlander, someone not from Teyvat at all, an alien. Rayru also screams the names of Rhyndaughtr and Vedrfolnir, both of whom are Conrian. That could mean Thelindis could also be from Conria, even possibly from the Crimson Moon Dynasty. The only other major Conrian whose true name we still don't know is Piero, the director of the Fatui. Could Thelindis be Piero's real name? Or could it be the name of another outlander who was summoned to Conria? Remember, Conria did have a program dedicated to finding or even summoning outlanders, so it's not impossible that Thelindis was one of them. Rayru's name comes from the Volsunga saga. In the myth, Rayru avenges his murdered father Sigi and becomes a powerful ruler in Hunaland. He and his wife couldn't have children until the goddess Frigg intervened.
Carl, that's on your end. Just reload the stream. It's not happening to me. I don't think it's happening to anyone else. Sometimes people get this bug. It's a Twitch thing.
But Rayru died shortly after the conception. His wife carried the child for 6 years before sacrificing her life in a cesarean birth. The child, Volsung, was born fully grown and kissed his mother before she died. If Genshin pulls strongly from this myth, then Thelindis might even turn out to be Rayru's lost lover. There's also a small but easy to miss detail at the end of Act 2. We see Rayru approaching a cave. That cave is actually the location of the Traveler's spaceship. You can even visit it yourself at this location in Star Sand Shoal. Which brings us to what I think is the biggest mystery Genshin has finally confirmed.
With the video?
Traveler and their sibling spaceship landed in Nodcry.
That's so weird. I'm only listening to the video once.
For years, most of us assumed their ship crashed somewhere near Conria, but no. This reveal changes everything. Before we talk about the parts that really bend your brain, let's start with what's actually confirmed. The very first mention of the Traveler's spaceship came in the Space and Time for You Archon quest. Now, the Luna 1 quest established that the Traveler and their sibling didn't arrive separately, they arrived together in a single ship. The vessel carried 2 cryosleep chambers, one for each of them, and each chamber required its own key. The spaceship also eerily resembles ancient dragon tech. According to the Traveler's account, their ship crash-landed in Nodcry. An unknown amount of time passed, long enough for thick moss to grow over it.
Look, this part is
Traveler
really
was
interesting.
eventually woken up by their sibling during the cataclysm 500 years ago. The two of them then tried to leave Teyvat, but were stopped and separated by the unknown god, someone we now know to be Asmodee, the god of space.
So we see, this part is really important. The ship resembles Dragon Tech. It fell down, and we see
ancient dragon tech.
the sibling
According to the
going to
Traveler's account,
it.
Their ship crash-landed in Nodcry. An unknown amount of time.
See, the ship is surrounded by moss growing all around, and it was never opened. So, like, how the hell did a sibling come out of it? That's because there was no sibling. That's the real important part.
Time passed long enough for thick moss to grow over it. The Traveler was eventually woken up by their sibling during the cataclysm 500 years ago. The two of them then tried to leave Teyvat, but were stopped and separated by the unknown god, someone we now know to be Asmodee, the god of space. In the siblings' version of events, things play out rather oddly. They claim they were the first to wake up from hibernation, and when they did, they had no memory of the traveler at all. Instead of waiting, they left their still sleeping twin behind and made their way to Conria. Once there, the last king Irmin actually appointed the sibling as heir to the throne. To the court of Conria, they were seen as a savior, a source of hope and strength for the kingdom. But this role came at a cost. 500 years ago, King Irmin performed a ritual to turn the sibling into a vessel for abyssal power. The sibling had planned to save Conria from collapse, but that plan changed the moment Diradith told them that the traveler was looking for them. Faced with a choice, save an entire nation or reunite with their twin, they chose the traveler.
Yeah, they chose the traveler, but why? That is the real question. It's not because, oh, I must reunite with my brother. There's a deeper meaning there. Maybe they realized that, if the traveler realizes that he never had a sibling to begin with and she was just a clone, things could go bad for her. So I think there's a deeper meaning. Or I think she could also maybe be programmed to go after the traveler, which is like her original, right? From the fact that she's a clone.
They seemingly rushed back to Nodcry to the site of the crash, woke up their twin, and urged them to flee the planet. What we don't know is how long the sibling was awake before all this. And here's where things start to get even more strange. Traveler notices that both cryo sleep chambers are still sealed shut.
Yeah.
Both. So how could one of them already be outside? That detail reminds me of something Nahida once told the traveler, and it makes things all the more confusing. Nahida explained that while Irminsul and even the Fatui recognize the traveler as a descender, their sibling is not. Outlanders are just aliens in general, but descenders are something else. They're beings who can defy the will of this world.
True.
Irminsul shouldn't have records of a descender, and yet it has records of the sibling, which would only be possible if the sibling actually belonged to Teyvat. That's already a contradiction because according to the traveler's own memories, they both came from a world beyond Teyvat. However, Irminsul contains clear records of the siblings' sudden appearance in Conria and their journey across the 7 nations, but near the end of their story, the records become fuzzy. Nahida concluded that someone is deliberately
There are two options. Either she's fake or time travel. I think she's fake. I really do. I think the whole story that they play for us during the battle pass sequence is not about the traveler and their sibling, and I think the sibling is just a clone made by Conria as a vessel for abyssal power. The question is, why pretend that the traveler had a sibling? I think it's because they were trying to make a descender for themselves to help fight the heavenly principles. But I don't think she's actually anything but a clone.
tampering with Irminsul to obscure the truth of the siblings' fate. So we have to ask the question, was the sibling we've been seeing even our real sibling? What if our actual sibling is still asleep inside the spaceship's chamber? Or worse, already dead inside of it? And when you remember that Rayrir has the ability to copy people, that possibility becomes even scarier. But there's something even more wrong with this scene. We know the traveler and their sibling arrived together in the same spaceship. That means logically there should have only been one falling star when they landed in Teyvat. But in
Not
the
two.
opening cutscene of Genshin, we see 2.
True.
Why? My homie Bran Online pointed out a really interesting possibility, that the opening cutscene might actually be out of order. The 2 streaks of light across the sky might not be their arrival at all. They could
I don't think it's their arrival. I think it's the moment they were confronted by the god of space, trying to leave the planet. They were flying across the sky to try and get to their ship. And then the god of time sees that, realizes that she's a fake. She's not a real descender. She's fake. She's a clone, and prevents them.
actually be the exact moment the twins were separated by Asmodee. Believe it or not, Scaramouche is actually the only character who gives us the most convincing scenario for what might have really happened. In the Sumeru Interlude Archon quest, he explains that the reason the siblings' records exist in Irminsul could be tied directly to Conria. According to him, Conria was the siblings' first destination when they arrived in this world, a point Nahida herself backs up. He also says the sibling came here because the heavens responded to the summoning. So here's the simplest explanation I can think of. Yes, the twin spaceship did land in Nodcry, but because of Conria's summoning, the sibling was pulled straight from the ship and into Conria itself. That would explain why, in the Moon Marrow's vision of the true past, both cryo chambers still appear sealed. Because the sibling wasn't woken up in the normal way, they were teleported out. And that's just one of many possibilities. Honestly, this topic alone is so big, it deserves its own dedicated video. I wanted to break it down here, but there's way too much to cover in one sitting. So for now, I think this lore bomb needs some time to marinate. For now, Colomina believes our spaceship has been intentionally hidden. She even says cryptically, perhaps someone has certain truths they wish to hide from us or from others. The only other person we know who's been to the crash site is Rayrir, but at this point the ship could be in anyone's hands. Speaking of the Moon Marrow and its ability to reveal the true past, there's a theory of mine that I've been holding on to for a while now. And honestly, I selfishly want it to be true. For the longest time, I didn't have enough evidence to back it up, but I think the Moon Marrow might finally give me the piece I've been missing. I've been theorizing that the Irminsul tree itself is made from the moons. One of the first clues that pushed me toward this idea comes from the Boatman world quest on Surumi Island. The Boatman's job is to guide souls back to the ley lines, which he calls the moon mansion that golden burns. The ley lines, of course, are the roots of the Irminsul tree. And think about how we interact with them. Every time we claim materials or artifacts from domains, we use resin, and every form of resin is shaped like a moon.
True.
Irminsul is a database of Teyvat, holding all the world's memories and history. And now we have the Moon Marrow, the body of a moon goddess, the relic that also allows us to peer into the true past. That parallel feels too strong to ignore. There's another idea that's been on my mind and has to do with something called the Golden Moon. When the traveler absorbs the Moon Marrow during the quest, they suddenly sense the true frost moon beyond the false sky, and it isn't silver like we'd expect, it's gold. That detail immediately stood out to me because gold connects back to the traveler in so many ways. The same golden power they used against the Raiden Shogun in Inazuma, and the same color often tied to anything celestial in nature. In alchemy, gold represents incorruptible perfection. Silver, on the other hand, is seen as a lesser stage, imperfect, often tied to illusion or incompleteness. It's not the first time this idea has come up either. In Natlan's Dreamy Paititi World Quest, there's a line about a golden moon, a silver moon, and a false moon. I'm not completely sure what it means yet, but it's just something to keep in mind. By the way, have you noticed how rain falls in Nodcry? It doesn't just drop straight down,
It goes up.
floats back up
Yeah,
into
I
the
noticed.
sky. That instantly reminded me of the upside-down water in the chasm during the Requiem of the Echoing Depths Archon quest, where Hilichurls would gather to let the water ease the pain of their curse. It makes me wonder if the water was actually lunar water. The moon's power has always been used to hold back the abyss. The Lightkeepers use it in battle, and Lauma's silver blood can heal those suffering from Kuvaki sensitivity. So it makes sense that lunar energy acts as a shield or temporary remedy against abyssal corruption. By that same logic, it makes me wonder if the celestial nails might also be forged from the bodies of the moons.
True.
This also brings me to Dainsleif's ring. It's the one thing keeping him from rotting away, unlike Capitano, who suffers from the same curse of immortality. This is just a crazy thought, but what if Dainsleif's ring is forged from Luna Soulstone or some other piece of the moon's? Luna Soulstone is so rare we've only seen it in the statues of the new moon built by the Frost Moon Scions. The Fatui apparently really want it. Also, every time I say Land of Nodcry, I'm always reminded of the Land of Nod. In the Bible, the Land of Nod was the location where Cain was banished for murdering his brother Abel. Cain was then cursed by God to be a restless wanderer. Exile and wandering definitely fits thematically for Nodcry. If the biblical Land of Nod really is one of the inspirations behind Nodcry's lore, then it makes you wonder, who's supposed to be Cain and who's Abel? Unless this is something the world quests eventually answer. I still have to finish them. But what's really been stuck in my head lately is this brand new book collection Genshin just dropped. It's called Hymns of the Far North, and honestly, I think Genshin may have played their hand too early with this one. Because if I'm right, this book might have already spoiled the Saritsa story and her real reason for wanting every Archon's gnosis. It could also explain why she's described as a god with no love left for her people. In
This
the
is
hymns, there's a
interesting.
passage, Prayer Song 16, that tells the story of a man named Saralainen. He was in love with a beautiful woman, the daughter of Pakaisuko. Keep in mind, Pakaisuko translates to Father Frost, which could very well be another name for the Belitsar, the first Cryo-Archon. But Saralainen never got his happy ending. He never got to marry the love of his life. Instead, he was struck down by the heavenly principles. His body was carved into 7 pieces. If I'm reading the hymn right, it's suggesting that the Saritsa was actually in love with the 3rd descender. The text strongly implies that Saralainen was actually the 3rd descender. His body, split into 7 parts, became the Archon's gnosis. But Saralainen may not have been his only name. There are clues suggesting he went by another one. Ajax.
So like this part is really interesting because the 3rd descender was the same person that would talk with Nibelung when the world was forming. And when Nibelung disappeared, this person was a woman, and she got into the world and took the body of a guy, Ajax. So Ajax was never a member, was never a person born into Teyvat. I mean, his body was born in Teyvat, but his spirit was of that one traveler that used to talk to Nibelung. And if the Belitsar is the father of the Tsaritsa and she was in love with him and he was cut down to make the gnosis, and we know that the 3rd descender was cut down to make the gnosis, then the reason why she's collecting the gnosis is to try and get him back, which is a crazy good plot line, and I hope it's actually true. Yeah, if that's the payout for the Snezhnaya chapter, it's gonna be crazy good. And imagine like she manages to bring him back by uniting the gnosises, and his lore drop is that the traveler doesn't have a sibling and that she's a clone. Imagine that. That would be crazy good. He's like, yeah, you're one of mine. You're like me, but she isn't. She's just a clone. That would be crazy. Or even bigger, she's actually his sibling. Uh, that would be wild too. Yeah, cause like if that's the case, that actually makes sense, Luz. Because if that was the case, that would explain how she was a vessel for abyssal power for the sinners of Korea, way before the traveler Ether even came to Teyvat. Yeah, that would be really good. If that's a possibility, that would be wild too. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That could be huge. Yeah, that would be amazing. I hope you're right. That would be crazy good as a story. Yeah. I like that idea a lot, not gonna lie. Yeah. You just made up a story that could actually be the case and be really good. But who knows, not right? We're gonna find out soon. Not soon, but like in years. Anyway, that's what I had for tonight, guys. I have to wake up tomorrow morning very early. So all I wanted to do was like have like a talk. That's why I'm even set to just chatting. I'm gonna end the stream early tonight. I just wanted to talk about the stuff that I talked at the beginning and watch the video with you guys. I had a lot of fun too. It was great. I like talking about lore. Lore is always nice. And I don't think I ever did that on stream before, so that was something new that I enjoyed a lot. Definitely planning on doing more of these. That was fun. I like that. Anyway, that was all I had for tonight, guys. It was a short stream. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm gonna do a normal size stream and play some other games too. Tonight I just wanted to um do a short stream with both my comments about the gotcha thing and the video. I still gotta work on this model too. I'll try to fix them up by tomorrow. I don't know if I have enough time, but I'll do my best. I'll see you guys then. Bye. Have a good night.